Hear you.
I know we could all hear each
I
other.
can't hear anything in this one.
Yeah.
Did you press anything?
Maybe put it louder or something. I don't know. I don't hear anything in here. Clint, I'm looking at you.
You can't hear me?
I don't hear anything.
You messed up your mic or something.
Well, that's not the issue.
No, it's the headphones. I don't hear anything in the headphones. I hear. Working now. It's working.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is. Everyone's saying it's working, and I hear it too.
Testing,
Yay.
testing. Can they hear us?
Thank you, Rumble. Thank you, YouTube.
No one could hear us.
Everyone's saying we hear you.
Play it on your phone. Okay, I think they hear us talking to each other. All right. Okay, we're back. I think we're back. The video that you just saw was Clint as a bicyclist. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Rudowski here of thebestpoliticalshow.com. I have absolutely no idea what in the world just happened, but we're going to be live here for the next 2 hours, hopefully with no audio or technical glitches from here, as of course there's a lot of absolutely crazy and incredible things to talk about today, as of course we have the story of the decade with a lot of very important developments regarding the latest documents dump surrounding Jeffrey Epstein's court case back in 2017. Lots of disinformation, lots of propaganda, as of course there's also reports of a gas explosion happening happening in Texas. There's a lot of protests also going off right now in Germany. What are going to be the bigger ramifications? What are going to be some of the things that are going to be unfolding because of these protests? Well, we're going to be discussing that plus a lot more for the next 2 hours. So make sure to share this broadcast with your friends and family members, as this conversation is definitely going to be a very interesting one, to say the least. If you want to participate in this conversation, you can just by simply signing up to, of course, lukeunfiltered.com. And then by signing up to lukeunfiltered.com, you, of course, get the ability to call into the show when we take callers on Rumble in the second hour. Another way to participate is, of course, through mysuperchat.com, a place that only takes a 3% service charge, not a 30% service charge like YouTube Super Chats. You could also do Rumble rants. Whatever chats you give us that are monetized, we, of course, will be reading them off, and you guys will be participating in the conversation. We just released also a very funny shirt on thebestpoliticalshirts.com that probably will get this podcast rated, to make sure that we have all of our legal fees and are secured with lawyers in the future. Make sure to sign up to lukeunfiltered.com. It really does mean a lot to us, and we really do appreciate all the incredible people that have been making this podcast really amazing. We just started doing this. We average usually 250,000 views per episode, and it's been really fun. It's been really an awesome adventure. And joining us for this adventure today is Leah. Leah, who are you? For the people who don't know you, how would you introduce yourself?
So great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. So I am a freedom maximalist. I think that's how we all sort of got connected. A big Bitcoin advocate. I'm an author. I have a book called Undressing Bitcoin. And I talk a lot about what's going on in the world right now. The world is pretty crazy. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Clint is here after his bike riding adventers.
Well, that was actually my trek to work today, and it was adventurous, but I'm glad I survived. Clint Russell, host of Liberty Lockdown, co-host of The Best Political Show, as well as co-host of Tower Gang, which you should not watch because it's very inappropriate. I am absolutely thrilled to be here. If you want to follow me, it's at Liberty Lockpod on X. 117,000 of you over there. Really appreciate it. Steph's on the buttons.
Steph on the button. Steph, we are change, and we are live, and it's working. Let's go.
All right, let's just get into it. As of course, we have the news reports coming in from Fort Worth, Texas, that there is a possible gas explosion. We're hearing that maybe 10 people were injured here. We still don't know all the details here, but this is going to be a story that we are going to be paying close attention to, as of course, everyone on social media is now talking about it. Is there something sinister here? As of right now, it doesn't look like it, but we're going to be keeping an eye on this situation. As of course, the story that is most important to talk about is this bombshell from the latest revelations that came from the Jeffrey Epstein document dump regarding a 2017 court case, where now, finally, after so many years, we're able to just get a little peek behind the door, behind the windows, behind the screen, behind the illusion of all these powerful individuals that rule in secrecy and do some really awful things. As this article reads, Donald Trump named in latest Epstein documents. Sarah Ransom said he had relations with many girls in email, where she also claimed Jeffrey Epstein had tapes of ex-President Richard Branson, Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton. As of course, a lot of people are automatically reacting to this story, but when you do a little bit more research, this story is not what you think it is. As of course, there are some caveats, there are some moments of truth here, but when you kind of dig a little bit deeper and you look at the other related news stories, you do see, specifically reporting from The Independent, talking about how these letters, these emails, were essentially said by Miss Ransom, who of course could be pictured here. This is one of the victims here that came out, that was a part of this court proceeding, and she said that she made up these rumors and allegations in order to bring more attention to this entire case. She admitted in an article from The New Yorker in 2019 that she invented these tapes. She invented what she said in order to bring more attention to this case. Now, does that warrant this news article that everyone's reading right now saying Donald Trump is implicated here? I don't think so. What do you guys think?
No, I don't think it does. And it's such a serious allegation. If it's true that she brought up high profile names and alleged that there was recordings of them just to try and essentially apply additional pressure to get further investigations, I understand, I guess, if I were a victim of what she went through, why I would want there to be more investigations. Of course, that's what you would want. But it totally discredits you if you name people that actually weren't involved, or if you allege that there's tapes that don't exist. So
I think it's also important to note here that Epstein did have secret surveillance cameras rigged everywhere, all over his properties. There's also a sixth property that no one knows where it is. I want to know where it is. I want to know the details of this property. Why aren't we allowed to know where a sixth place is that clearly was involved in a criminal organization that included the trafficking of small children? Those are the details that should be made aware to the general public, since, of course, our tax dollars pretty much finance and bankrolled this entire operation. We have, of course, the New Mexico ranch that also connects the Clintons that were connected to that specific property that you needed to helicopter in. We had the property in Paris. We had the island. We had the property in New York. And then, of course, we had the property here in southern Florida that was just recently demolished. The property in New York was actually bought up by a Goldman Sachs guy. There's another big hedge fund guy that bought the island and is actually making it into a resort right now. Where's the sixth place? As of course, the FBI never even went after a lot of the properties that we just mentioned to you here. They never even served search warrants on those properties. How much more of a criminal cover-up could you have than what we have right now?
Well, that makes you think everybody's involved, doesn't it? Even though she, says she made up those stories, it makes you think that all the names that are dropped are involved, even potentially Donald Trump. It's concerning. It's like corruption at its highest level.
And there's a kernel of truth to this, because there's reports of Donald Trump entering Epstein's mansion in New York City. There's documents revealing that he didn't go to the island, that allegedly he didn't fly on the airplane, that allegedly he didn't participate in the wheelchair extracurricular activities with Mr. Hawking, doing some really weird mechanical things that we don't even want to think about here on this family-friendly broadcast. But one thing that I found very interesting that was kind of disclosed after investigating and looking into this story for a very long time was that what I saw was a report detailing how there was a surveillance camera in every single room in the New York City property. Now, if Donald Trump is hanging out with Epstein, which we know he was, if there are, ladies or children procured, and there's surveillance cameras everywhere, and you have Woody Allen coming in. That guy, holy cow, that's another creeper there to say the least. You have Alan Dershowitz coming in there. You have freaking Kevin Spacey coming in there. Alan Dershowitz, the same guy that argued for a legal age of consent to be lowered, I think, to 14. Yep. When you have all these people coming in and out, the Prime Minister of Israel coming in, hiding his face as he's walking into Epstein's New York City mansion that is filled with surveillance cameras, there's going to be tapes, and there are tapes, and there should be a big push. There should be a big demand right now saying, hey, the tapes that the FBI confiscated and magically lost, we want to know who has them, because who has them has a lot of power on all these individuals. Well, I mean, imagine.
That's why we won't get the answer, is because if our thesis is correct, that this was essentially a compromise operation to try and get leverage over the political elites, business elites, well, then why would the FBI turn it over, given that it's probably an FBI and Mossad operation to begin with? So, or CIA, for that matter. That's my assessment. I tend to believe that there's absolutely footage of many powerful people. I tend not to believe that Trump was involved. I don't think that he's a good guy, but I also don't think that he was, interested in children. That's just my read of it. I could be totally wrong. Who knows? But I do think that there are lots of people that were caught red-handed, and the leverage was used for its purpose.
But I don't think that you have to be, so just hear me out. I don't think it's necessarily you have to be interested in children. I think Jeffrey Epstein is or was an incredibly smooth operator, and he knew exactly what he was doing. And I think he wanted to have leverage on all of these powerful people, including people like Trump, and so manipulated certain situations so that these individuals are caught red-handed, but didn't sort of really realize what they're doing. I hear a lot of influential people get invited to different parties, and they know that they have to turn down the invitation to these parties because somebody can slip something in your drink, take a picture of you in a sort of compromising position. So I don't know whether it's, they have to have an interest in children. I think there's a lot of smooth operating going on behind the scenes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and if you look at the way that he operated, there's reports of children as young as 9, but there's also a lot of women who are 16, 17, and just below the kind of age of consent in certain jurisdictions that you could play off as, oh, this person's 21, don't worry about it. When you look at what happened to Cody Wilson, there's a very kind of similar situation that he was involved in. The guy who brought together what I think the 3D printed firearms that he created. A lot of people believe that he was also entrapped in this particular way with someone pretending to be a different age. Now, if you have someone that's a different age than what they claim to be, and you think they're of an age of consent, that's also a possibility here that is worth considering, as CNBC News is reporting that Trump did have meals at Epstein's home, but no massages, according to a housekeeper that testified in this situation. Now, can you believe anyone here when it comes to Donald Trump? I think it is a very special situation because the media has been investigating him. The feds have been investigating him. Everyone under the sun is doing their best to try to get him. Do they have him? Do they have him under control? Well, that's something that I think deserves to be speculated and talked about here, because everything and anything is possible here, especially when you have the corrupted DOJ literally going to the founder of the Proud Boys and saying, hey, just tell us Trump's involved. We'll get you off here. We'll make sure you don't do any serious jail time if you just throw Trump under the bus. He didn't. Now he's serving a very significant jail sentence. So when you have pressure put on by the establishment to corner Trump, to kind of get Trump in jail, you have this man investigated more than anything else. You do have to look at all the facts here, and I don't know what's going on, but personally, I want to hear from Trump. I want to know what he knows. I want him to come out and say, hey guys, this was the situation. This was my participation. This was my involvement here. I didn't do this. I did this. I just want to know. RFK Jr. came out and even a couple weeks ago said, hey, I flew on the blank Express. And then he's named in these documents as well. So did he know that these documents were coming out before they were coming out? As of course he kind of he kind of said the quiet part out loud before he was implicated, and then he was able to run cover. Also, shouts out to Red Viking saying, my dinner is fried in seed oils is cold again. I'm sorry, Red Viking. Avoid the seeded oils as much as you can for yourself, for your well-being. You will thank me later. But again, Trump is a very special case here. He did work with some of the victims and did testify and did provide evidence against Epstein many years ago. There is a friendship there. There are larger questions there. I want to hear from Trump. I think that's warranted. I think that's justified. And if there's any journalist out there, I think they should ask Trump, hey, what's really going on here, since a lot of the messages you send here are very mixed.
I got to be honest. I would like to hear Trump explain too, but more than that, what I would like to have explained is the FBI officials that gave Epstein a pass in the late 2000s. How did that happen? I would like to have the judge put on trial. Honestly, I need answers as to why they allowed this man to walk, particularly given that he was still allowed to essentially just leave the prison whenever he wanted to, and got a very light sentence. There needs to be explanations for this, and we're still yet to get it. And what frustrates me is that because we're talking about this, a lot of times people will accuse us of conspiracy theorizing. It's like, no, we know that there's victims here, and we don't know the extent of the damage. The reason that we're forced to theorize is because the institutions that are responsible for the protection of children have failed. They haven't done their job. And if that's the case, well, then, yeah, we're going to try and suss out the truth on our own. That's not our fault. That's yours.
Yeah, if you look at Alexander Acosta, he was essentially a Trump appointee in his administration. He's the one that gave the kind of sweetheart deal of a lifetime here in Florida to Mr. Epstein. And then, of course, he was implicated in this. And then he, of course, was forced to resign from the Trump administration. As many people were saying, why did you give this guy a slap on the wrist? Why did you allow this guy to essentially be in his own private wing of the prison that he didn't even have to be in, that he literally was able to walk out of anytime he wanted to? There's also a lot of reports saying that he was supposed to come back and sleep there at night, and that he wasn't even doing that. He literally bought off a lot of police departments, and according to many sources, was still continuing his form of abuse on children when he was allegedly in jail. So those were some very serious questions that were brought up against Acosta, that is also rumored to have said that Epstein was intelligence. Was he intelligence? In my opinion, absolutely, because how else do you explain all these crazy activities that he was a part of?
And how many dozens of kids ended up getting hurt?
Thousands, not dozens.
No,
I'm thousands.
I'm saying post the Acosta decision to let him walk. Maybe it's hundreds, maybe it's thousands more after that. I don't know. I'm just saying they had this guy in their sights, and they let him go, and that is just completely unacceptable. And I'm furious that we're forced to try and figure this out when you're supposed to have high-level government officials that are supposed to be doing this. That's the whole reason that you have all of these abilities to circumvent the Bill of Rights, is to actually prevent things like this. If you're not doing that, well, then how about you just don't exist?
Yeah,
how about that?
And then you have the Bill Barr connection, a man whose father gave Epstein his start, especially at the Dalton School in New York, that is overseeing everything and then lying to the general public about seeing the videotapes of what happened to Mr. Epstein that night in the jail when there was no videotapes on record. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I want to know what's up with Trump, because this all happened under the Trump administration with Trump appointees, that clearly there is some larger involvement here on Trump, as a lot of people say he's absolutely scot clean. A lot of people say, no, he's absolutely implicated and dirty. All I'm saying is, we don't know, but we deserve to know, because if there's compromise on Donald Trump, you could bet your bottom dollar that could maybe even explain a lot of his anti-MAGA policies. That could also explain why he might become the next president of the United States. You look at all the powerful people in this world, a lot of them do some really awful, horrendous, horrible stuff. And then, and only then, are they able to be the A-listers? Are they able to be the celebrities? Are they able to be the top echelons of society, pretty much after doing something horrible and awful and having compromise on them, because then they could be controlled? That happens a lot in our society, and I think people don't realize how often it actually does. But
Leah, you said that you go to these parties and people have to not attend just because they're concerned about having essentially what we're describing right now done to them. What kind of parties are you being invited to, girl?
No, not parties. So I host a podcast, and I speak to a lot of really influential people.
Okay.
People who make a lot of money in crypto, politics. Yeah. And I've had a few people on my podcast pretty recently who have told me that they've been invited to parties and they've had to turn them down because they know that they're going to be put in compromising positions, and they don't want to be blackmailed. They also told me about a theory. I don't know if you've looked this up, but apparently so kind of like you were saying, anyone who wants to get to the top and be some kind of A-list celebrity, politician, or whatever it is, they have to sort of go through some kind of like inauguration, or do something kind of bad or compromising in order to get to that point. So if you type in any kind of A-list celebrity who's a man, so say you type in like Brad Pitt dressed as a woman, you will see all of these male A-list celebrities dressed as a woman.
Yeah, and they do it all the time, and they try to do it to Dave Chappelle, and Dave Chappelle literally had to fight back, and then he fought back to the point where all the industry insiders in Hollywood were saying, we're going to make sure people think you're crazy. We're going to make sure that we put you in an insane asylum, which really makes you wonder and consider what happened to Kanye West, as of course, someone connected to Canadian military intelligence, who was the personal trainer, literally put him in an insane asylum, and then drugged him up, and then gave him a whole bunch of pharmaceuticals that mess up your brain chemistry. And then they had the follow-up threats against Kanye as well.
Yeah, threatened about taking his kids away.
So we talked about this previously on Rumble, and I described this. We're gonna describe it when we finally go over to a place where we could talk freely. This is a family-friendly show, but we can't discuss it. But what I previously discussed on Rumble was a compromising situation where particularly the male celebrities are put in a situation where other males do stuff to them on video camera, and then once they have that video footage, then they could become the number one artist, the number one celebrity, the number one promoted individual or movie star. And that's how they, of course, control everyone to make sure that, hey, when it comes to pushing certain experimental procedures onto the general public, that they're going to be lock, step, and barrel coming in there and just repeating what they're told to repeat. That's how Hollywood works. That's how Washington, D.C. works. That's how a lot of the upper echelons of society works. And those are major bombshells that a lot of people don't realize just how corrupted the entire industry is from top to bottom. I don't know if you've seen some of this, but I've heard, I spent a little bit of time in Hollywood. I talked to a little bit of people, and trust me, all this stuff, that's some deeper down the rabbit hole truths that I think we can maybe get away with on YouTube.
Well,
Maybe.
just keeping it light. I'm curious, Luke, to hear your take, because you obviously have a lot of not a lot of experience personally, but you seem to be well read on the matter. Why do you think that there is this push to get that type of footage between men? I mean, even what we see with Sam Smith, Harry Styles, who's the guy that did the donkey song? The black singer, what's his name? The rapper, what's his name? Little Nas.
X.
Little Nas X, I think.
Yeah. Some people don't even buy that he's gay. I don't know if you've seen that. A lot of people think that that's a conspiracy as well. I'm curious, why do you think they're pushing that kind of agenda?
A lot of people boil it down to good versus evil. A lot of people boil it down to Satanism. A lot of people boil it down to essentially a lot of people serving Lucifer. This is why, again, let's save this conversation for Rumble, because there's a lot of demons that come in through particular body cavities. That also is a very important theory that I've talked about before on Rumble. I can't go too down the rabbit hole here on YouTube, so I apologize.
Before
but
we
will continue. We will continue this conversation. Bet your bottom dollar on Rumble.
I have a PG take on this that needs to be discussed briefly. I'm sure most people have heard about Cat Williams going on Shannon Sharp's podcast about a week ago. It's got like 30 million views or something in a matter of a week. It's crazy. But what he talks about is what we're talking about here. And what's amazing is that it's not just Hollywood, it's also comedy. It's like basically any industry in entertainment, music as well. And he's hinting at all this, and he's just dragging everybody viciously in a way that I've honestly, I haven't seen it since Kanye went on his bender last year. Very interesting though, the allegations about like putting them in dresses. I think that it's largely about, I don't really go the route that Luke was referencing earlier, as much as I think it's about like, show fealty. Show that you're not an independent actor. Show that you're not going, like, if they tell you to do something and they mean it, you're going to listen, because like you've already demonstrated, like, okay, I don't have a spine here. Okay. I'll put on a dress. I'll do whatever you want. I'm just trying to be famous. Mm-hmm. So I think that's how I've always read it, but it could be much darker.
I have a different explanation. I already want to go off on a rant.
Rumble.
But this like YouTube video, like taken down immediately if that would happen. We still got a lot of stuff to talk about, especially when it comes to Bill Clinton, Richard Branson. We're going to get into that in just a little bit. We have a super chat here from Doc Holliday, who says, Luke can't control his TDS, and it's ruining his cred. Someone said they heard something from someone. This is so sad. Doc Holliday, I would respectfully disagree, as of course, I think I came out with a very clear understanding of it, saying, hey, a lot of people think he's totally innocent. A lot of people think he's totally guilty. I think the truth could be explained by asking him some questions, which I think is reasonable to call for here, since him and his administration were involved in this entire matter, and there wasn't any kind of transparency, there wasn't any accountability, and there was a cover-up of what happened to Epstein under his watch. Okay. Yep. That's something that I want more truth from. He was the president of the United States when everything happened. He was proceeding over everything as it was happening. I want to know what's going on here. That's not TDS.
Right.
That's asking accountability from our future possible elected leader.
And he surrounds himself, as you said, with Acosta and Barr. It's like, should we never ask any questions of Donald Trump surrounding himself with some of the worst people in DC? Like, I think that it's totally reasonable to ask these questions, and I don't think that there's any derangement syndrome that's occurring when we want to know the truth about these people that have a tremendous amount of power over us.
Is there like an opposite of TDS like this guy has? Is there like the opposite?
Yeah.
Like whatever that is. It sounds like he has it. You have to ask these questions.
It's still TDS. It's just a positive version of it.
Right.
It goes both ways. It really does.
Yeah, I mean, let's just have some rational, critical thinking skills here, and like, I think asking questions and looking into the things deeper don't make you a bad person. So I try to be as intellectually honest as I can. If you think I'm wrong in any way, feel free to call it out, and I appreciate the constructive criticism a lot. Now, the Gateway Pundit has another very interesting article, as they released an article that says, breaking, another round of Epstein docs released, and there are alleged private, again, family-friendly show here, intimate relation tapes of Bill Clinton, which clearly identify his face. I think they're still going off of what Sarah Ransom said. Could we take it seriously? Again,
No.
Sarah even says no herself in an interview on The New Yorker. But are there tapes? Probably, as we also have heard through these documents, allegedly, that Clintons paid off girls who were all essentially going to the FBI. We do know that Clinton did show up to Vanity Fair and stop the news story coming out early in the 2000s about this entire saga. So the Clintons obviously involved here, and a lot of these documents are surrounding the Clintons. And as I said before they even came out, I said, look out for the Clintons. They're going to be named here. And what I see here is a larger internal battle between the Democratic establishment. And I've been right about that, as it definitely looks like the Clintons are the ones being explicitly named here, explicitly called out here, and individuals that, of course, are the main kind of casualty of this document release, which also includes documents showing that Trump never went to the island.
Well, and
Clinton did go to the island.
And who benefits from this, right? Especially if we've got Michelle possibly gearing up to run. Now you got Trump being hinted at. You got Bill being hinted at. It's like, well, then the only real viable candidate that would be out there would be Michelle. I just think it's interesting.
We're going to talk about Mike in a little bit.
Okay.
You want to say something?
No, I think what makes me so disillusioned with this list is the fact that I don't feel I've learned much.
I feel the same way.
Saying Clinton is on there doesn't really surprise me. I mean, everybody's known about Bill Clinton's behavior for years. Everybody knows that Hillary Clinton paid people off to, to push it all under the rug. So I don't really know where we go from here. That's what makes me really confused. I don't feel any more enlightened. I don't know what we do with this information. Like, tell me, where realistically, where do we go from here? What do we do with this? If the FBI are covering it up, the people at the highest level are covering up, Stephen Hawkins, he's dead. Like,
right.
What are all these names?
Abolish the government.
Hey,
where
the
do we
Stephen
go?
Hawking memes are worth it alone.
They're
Okay?
not worth it.
Yeah, all
I'll
right?
give you that. They're worth it.
All right. Just the memes of him and that wheelchair, and even that Simpsons episode. That itself, I'll take it. But more
you see what I
importantly,
mean? Where do we go from
totally
here?
do.
I haven't learned anything new. Bill Clinton, we know about his behavior for ages. We know they're all corrupt at the highest level. So what do we do with this new information?
You're absolutely right. A lot of it isn't even new. A lot of it is just stuff that we knew about beforehand, but now we have official confirmation of it. Now we have a dialogue. Now we have individuals like Vivek Ramaswamy coming out on the national stage and saying, abolish the FBI, get rid of all of the agents, which, again, you would never hear someone call for that ever again. But now with this latest revelation, you have more weight towards that larger kind of claim, which people would think was crazy, but now it's something that literally people are arguing about.
I have a question. How old is Vivek?
37, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's very lucky that he sort of missed the Epstein boat, because I believe that if he was 57 and if he was around at that time, his name would be on the list.
Probably. A lot of people have been, especially in his circles, especially in his kind of establishment circles that he was in before. I could probably see that.
It's easy for him to say that.
Absolutely. As, of course, even John McCain's wife came out and said everyone in Washington, D.C. knew what he was up to, knew what he was doing, knew how dirty he was, and then everyone was too afraid to do anything about it when they knew small children were being hurt here. Yeah. So these are some of the biggest, most powerful people in the world that knew this was happening and then decided to just look the other way. Now, would Vivek be implicated here? We don't know. I think it's fair to speculate. Maybe it's a possibility, but I think these revelations are important because one, they do hit at larger blackmail efforts that could be happening right now between the Clinton and Obama factions. But two, it also does bring the left and the right together on an issue, just highlighting just how corrupt government is and how we shouldn't be thinking that the Democrats and the Republicans are going to save us, since they're both implicated here.
Exactly.
So, and then people understanding just how corrupt the entire system is, from the local police officers to the judges to the prosecutors to the attorneys to the politicians to the media moguls. I mean, there's so many individuals named here. There's so many individuals implicated here, including, of course, even Sergey Brin, as we have this New York Post article talking about how Jeffrey Epstein helped him land a JP Morgan Google deal that involved $4 billion in investments. As we know, JP Morgan and Chase also implicated here in a lot of this, as they even lost a major lawsuit because of their involvement skirting the rules, skirting the regulations, and allowing Epstein to virtually do whatever he wanted to with hundreds of millions of dollars without any kind of real accountability. You go to the bank right now, you try to take out $10,000, they're going to have you filling out forms the entire freaking day. They're going to be taking their sweet time to make sure you don't get your money. Epstein was moving around tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. No one even was batting an eye. That shows you the banks, the government, the legal system, even the local police departments, all corrupted here by some kind of higher power that abused their position to the point where they were doing some of the most awful things on the face of this earth. This is the story of the decade, and I think the more people that hear about it, the better off we are towards moving towards a solution that doesn't involve government and involves individuals saying personal responsibility, local decentralized efforts, supporting local banks instead of JP Morgan, supporting local initiatives, supporting community-based organizations rather than governments is something that we should all strive for. This is the story that helps get us there, in my opinion. I could be wrong.
Let me just say real quick, I got to defend Vivek a little bit because it's such a harsh allegation that if he was 20 years older, he would have been involved. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I will say this. All of these people that we're hearing the names of, they have instances of infidelity and sex scandals and stuff in their past. Vivek has none of that. So
Because he's too young. He hasn't had the time.
well, he's
Give him
30, he's
time.
37 years old. Come on. Like
Give him time.
I
Give
think
him time.
I think
Call me cynical. but-
you are cynical. My goodness. But I think that it, like, once you have that history, Bill Clinton was doing this for his entire adult life. So it's like no one's surprised about Bill. I would personally be surprised about Vivek. But to your point about what are we to do about it, I think that it's not really about even like whether or not you believe Vivek. It's that the people are getting so fed up with this system that so many of them are sitting around their kitchen table like we are right now saying, what do we do with this information? And for the first time, the Overton window is allowing a real conversation. And what's most profound about this, it's allowing a real conversation amongst the thin blue line folks, amongst the GOP voters that are saying the FBI's got to go. If they don't protect children, they've got to go. That's progress as far as I'm concerned. So we'll see if it actually becomes action, but I hope so.
We got other super chats. One from 52 Games Podcast saying, don't forget Frazzle Drip and Isaac Cappy's list. I never heard of Frazzle Drip. Have you guys heard of Frazzle Drip before?
I have not.
Doc Holliday.
He asked that about yesterday, dude.
Which one was that?
Yeah, that was on the stream just yesterday.
Okay.
Somebody
Well,
asked.
he asked again.
Okay.
We got another super chat from Doc Holliday saying, I've seen everything that I can watch and read, and I disagree. It's obvious, and it has been obvious for a long time. You want it to be true. Doc, I would respectfully disagree with you, but thank you for your super chat. We got a first super chat from Daytunes. Thank you so much, Daytunes, for your first super chat saying, quote, look up Rachel Chandler equals child handler, a.k.a. friend of Epstein who turned into a paid informant. If you know, you know. I haven't heard about that one. Have you?
I've heard about that one.
I did
It's
not
been
know.
all over Twitter. She's a young girl, supposed to be pimping out all the other girls. You know when they use young women to befriend other women
Yes.
and lure them in, that's who she's supposed to be. Rachel Chandler, I think her name is.
We got another super chat from Joel Exleen saying that super chatter has TDSS, Trump blank sucking syndrome.
There you go.
And I would choose something less vulgar myself here, but we'll fully explain what that is on Rumble. Another super chat from Ian Metford saying, I want the truth on Trump, though the heavens may fall. We'll be becoming a damn cult if we aren't careful, and we'll lose all credibility on the issue. And I think
Bingo.
what makes the right different and a lot of the anti-establishment type different than a lot of the leftists is the leftists are living in a cult, and they don't want their power, they don't want their politicians questioned, and we want to question everything. We want to hold everyone accountable. We are, of course, a generation of individuals that have been screwed over, and we're tired of the same old bullcrap just being regurgitated to us. And I think not being in a cult is a good thing. I think questioning everything is a good thing if we do it in a respectful way without jumping to conclusions and without just being stupid about it. Another Rumble rant from Crash Bandit saying Epstein founder on the Warfare Cabinet Company and had a side gig with a pizza parlor. Just joking, or am I? Hope you all had a good weekend. Thank you, Crash Bandit. I really appreciate that. As of course, another person implicated in all of this is Richard Branson, a man who also has his own private island and has been named in these particular documents. Now, there have been a lot of different accusations against kind of Richard Branson. He's also an individual who decided to dress up as a female and be a female stewardess on the Virgin Atlantic planes. But
that was his inauguration.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, absolutely. What is it with these billionaires and them dressing up as women and then hanging out on all these private islands? Peter Nygard is one of them as well. Jean-Luc Bernet, who of course also had a very similar demise, as did Mr. Epstein, in a jail cell where he was allegedly, committed an action against himself with surveillance cameras that went out and weren't working. So. Is this if you want to enter the billionaire club, you just have to do this? Is that it?
I mean that's essentially what Cat Williams was hinting at. He's like, look at all these brothers. They all have the same exact woman with that plain face. And I was like, that's interesting. I know, like it's kind of like a shot in the dark claim, but it is fascinating that so many of these, like, usually like strong black men they'd be caught dead before they would ever be in a dress. You know what I mean? And then,
but it's not just them. It's also like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's also John Cena. It's John Cena. My God, that guy is
Dwayne Johnson.
Dwayne Johnson, absolutely. China told John Cena, get on your knees, be pathetic, be sad. He's like, okay.
He's like, ching ching, and you're like, whoa, you're apologizing in Mandarin? I didn't even know you knew Chinese. He apologized in Mandarin. Do you know how crazy that is?
For accidentally naming Taiwan.
Yeah. No, I'm dead serious.
He accidentally talked about Taiwan. Right. He accidentally mentioned Taiwan, and then he was like, "Oh, miso so and I'm like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Like, so
because when you're I think like when you're on your way up and you're a multi-millionaire, you're on your way to becoming a billionaire. They know, and they can't allow you to have that much power and sovereignty. And so they have to compromise you in some way.
Yep.
And once you're compromised, then they allow you to get to that next level.
Exactly, because you've
submitted.
You've shown fealty.
Right.
And I think that's exactly what they do. And it's like, but that's why when we look at the media landscape and we go like, why is there no one that's telling the truth?
You can't.
Exactly. You can't. Because if you do, the only way you can actually get your voice out there is to be independent, to go with Rumble or some other alternative platform that actually allows you to tell the truth. The vast majority of people, it's not like many of them, I don't even think want to be liars. They're just like, I can't have a voice unless I at least hide 20% of myself. And it's a terrible negotiation. It's a deal with the devil, but I understand the rationale why people do it. I would never do it myself. But
look at this ugly old hag, Richard Branson, in a literal dress and high heels on with red lipstick on. Previously, before this, there was a scene where he was shaving his legs here. Here's he's fake making out with another dude as he's literally feminized.
It's a trend. Trend.
He's literally getting picked up by another dude and acting like a damsel in distress. Look at that face there.
This could tie in with the decline in testosterone too. That just men are just doing it more readily because they're all like
No. It's definitely ritual. It's definitely ritualistic. It's definitely.
I gotta admit, it does look like that.
No, it's every single person that's ever made it has to go through. You called it a ritual, and I would absolutely agree with you. And Richard Branson is connected to a lot of very prominent individuals. Some of those prominent individuals, of course, being the Obamas, as we have this photo here of Richard Branson choking out Barack Obama. Yes, this is a real photo from Richard Branson's private island, as the Obamas usually love to go to his private island and hang out with him and do stuff with. Yeah. What do the Obamas do with Richard Branson? As of course, there's a lot of consideration when it comes to Mr. Barack Obama's behavior. As of course, the sign behind you is signed by Larry Sinclair, our first podcast episode ever on thebestpoliticalshow.com. You should watch that first episode ever, as there's also a lot of questions about him and his productivity and his let's just say
Proclivities.
Yeah, but how would I describe this in a family-friendly way? His desires are quite interesting.
His preferences.
When talked about some of the witnesses that spent time with him in hotel rooms doing some particular substances that we can't talk about here on this particular broadcast. But with the Obamas here hanging out with Richard Branson, it doesn't surprise me that Branson is a part of the club, especially with the possibility, some people say, Mike becoming the next president of the United States. What do you guys think of Richard Branson here and their very cozy relationship with the Obamas?
I think there's not enough information to really connect a serious dot on this one. But I will say this. I do think that there needs to be a real investigation into what happened with Obama's chef. I'm totally discontented with how that was played out. And if you actually look into it in a non, TDS or an OTS sort of way. Like I don't have derangement syndrome about these people, but I just think it's very strange that is written off as a guy who's really good at swimming, gets out on a paddleboard, just goes away, and then all of a sudden the tests for his blood work goes missing. It's like. You got to do better than that.
Right.
You got to do better than that.
Yeah, there's just too many questions. It's too bizarre. What do I think about Richard Branson hanging out with them? I think it's just all big. I think it's just one big club, and we're just not in it. Him being mentioned in Epstein's files is obviously extremely concerning. The Obamas being with him is even more concerning, but it's just one big club and we're just not in it.
I don't want to be in it.
No, I'm good as well. I don't really want to be in it. I just want to hold my Bitcoin and keep myself to myself. That's what I want to do.
I
and not vote, obviously.
I value my life. I will not be ending it prematurely, and I will never be wearing a dress. All right, for the record. And
shots fired, Alex Stein.
Yeah.
You sell out. I know exactly what you've done, Alex.
No. He wore a swimsuit.
Yeah,
it was disgusting.
Yeah, it was horrific.
It was bad.
Yeah.
Alex Stein, what are you doing?
He's joining the club, I guess.
Yeah,
That's what
you
he's
join
doing.
the club,
He's joining the
and
club.
then the Blaze gives you this big 4-figure contract, bro. Like I see you, dude.
We see you, Alex. We're going to confront you when we see you. We can't even pull that photo up because it's too it's too graphic. The photo of him in Austin in that swimsuit. Absolutely, do not go there. Do not look up Alex Stein swimsuit.
I feel like doing it.
Don't
right
do
now,
it.
You know? I
No.
feel like grabbing it.
Don't do it. Another person that a lot of people do not want to see in a swimsuit is, of course, Michelle Obama, that just a couple of moments ago came out and said this on national television.
Are we moving at all fast enough? What are we doing about education? Are people going to vote? And why aren't people voting? Are we too stuck to our phones? I mean, those are the things that keep me up because you don't have control over them. And you wonder, where are we in this? Where are our hearts? What's going to happen in this next election? I am terrified about what could possibly happen because our leaders matter. Who we select, who speaks for us, who holds that bully pulpit. It affects us in ways that sometimes I think people take for granted. The fact that people think that government, does it really even do anything? And I'm like, oh my God. Does government do everything for us? And we cannot take this democracy for granted. And sometimes
everything. I don't want the government doing everything for me.
Nothing.
And whatever it does, it does everything crappily. And a lot of people are saying, well, this is just Michelle Obama. She's just doing an interview. She's just doing a podcast. She's just trying to sell some books here. Other people are saying she's using this platform as a way to test her potential for a 2024 candidacy, as even major JP Morgan analysts are saying Joe Biden's probably going to be dropping out because of his health soon. And I think they're waiting to announce this news so there's not going to be a primary, so they could just inaugurate someone into that position that won't create a situation just like Bernie Sanders created for them a couple years ago that was very uncomfortable for them. Is Michelle Obama, or some people call him Mike, is big? I already have merchandise that I'm working on this. By the way, is this person going to be the next president of the United States?
What? I think she's trying to run for it. That's for sure. I don't think she'll get it. I think it's going to be a very long time until we see a female president. Not for any female reason, but just not for any gender reason or sexism or anything like that.
We're not going to have a female president, but we're going to have Mike Obama as president of the United States. It makes sense. I agree with you.
No,
Mike Obama's going to be president, right? And then it's not going to be a female.
No, I just think the options, like you were saying, are just terrible. We've had Hillary Clinton,
Nikki Haley, who's the Republican. No, that's the Republican Hillary.
Right, she's terrible. She's just playing with gender politics and gender political ideologies and things like that. Identity politics. That's what I was trying to find the word I was going for. But I don't like her speech at all. It really bugs me. Her speech is like, it's so establishment. It's so, who we pick matters. Yeah, we just had Democrats and now we've just had like the world wars. We've just been on the brink of World War III. We've had Russia, Ukraine, the Middle East. Everything has erupted under the Democrats. Not that I think, Republicans would be any better because I am very anti-establishment, but what she's saying just it makes my blood boil because she's saying as if it matters, as if it really makes a difference, as if she's going to come in and make it any better. I just don't believe it.
I can't tell you how. I've listened to a lot of politicians talk. This past week has been it has been a test on my blood pressure. First, we have Joe Biden bragging about putting Trump supporters away for 840 years, and then you have Mike Obama coming out and saying the government does everything. It's the most important thing, and I'm like these people are just abject evil on a scale that's really hard for me to fathom. I don't understand how you can, after everything we've lived through, after what their management of the 2020 era to today, how catastrophic that has been for humanity. And to say the government matters. Does it matter, actually? Because it seems to me that the only way in which it matters is how it is utterly destroying our existence. I can't believe that you could even talk like that. How many lives were lost as a consequence of the decisions made by the government over the past 3 years? How many? How many more must we lose before we actually look in the mirror and go like, you guys shouldn't actually exist anymore? And the government, not the officials.
But it's crazy because hearing her speak, and like in contrast to the way that we speak about government, it's like she's talking a different language.
I agree.
It's like we come from completely different worlds. Talking about government does everything. Government is so important. Voting really matters. We are here to save the day. And then we're on the other side of the spectrum, just thinking government shouldn't touch anything.
Yeah, leave us alone.
You're making everything worse. Everything you say is a lie. It's just fascinating to think that we are just complete opposites of the spectrum.
That is the dichotomy of the American existence. You have those that believe in the state and those that don't.
Right.
Automatically, my thought process goes towards, Michelle's going to run, but she's going to run and then come out as a trans person. And then all the leftists and Democrats are like, oh my God, this is such an incredible story. We have to make this the first trans president of the United States. And with just how woke and how crazy and indoctrinated the left is, why not? With how crazy 2024 has already been in the last few days, as of course there's also talks about Nephilim and aliens. We're going to talk about that in a little bit here because we're here in Miami. There's a lot of hearsay. There's a lot of controversy surrounding that. We're probably going to have to save that for Rumble. But this was also another interesting segment by Meet the Press that talked about the Obamas recently that I think is also worth noting in this conversation.
As President Biden ramps up his general election campaign, there are new warning signs. The Washington Post reporting former President Obama has raised questions about the structure of President Biden's reelection campaign. Two sources confirmed to NBC News that Obama and Biden met over lunch in December and discussed the campaign, with Obama expressing deep concern about Mr. Trump's political strength. Underscoring the urgency, one source telling me this is an all-hands.
Yeah, so with Obama and Biden meeting and being extremely concerned about Donald Trump, you could bet your bottom dollar if they're looking at all the poll numbers, specifically highlighting a situation that's not very advantageous for Joe Biden. We're dealing with this situation where everyone is predicting, hey, Biden's absolutely going to lose here. He's absolutely has no chance of winning this general election with the way that things are going off right now, especially in the Republican primary, especially with every time that they go after Trump, they make him more popular. They make him more infamous. They make him someone that they are essentially putting on the road to a path of victory. I think the Obamas are more involved here than ever. I would even speculate to think that they are playing a role here when it comes to this document dump that is essentially going up against the Clintons. Barack Obama previously talked about how he wished that he was still in power without being the face of power. I still think he is. I think his administration, the people around him during his administration, are still playing a key, crucial role now. And I think they're worried, and I think they're going to be doing something before this upcoming election to make sure that their people stay in power, because power doesn't usually acquiesce. Power doesn't usually just surrender itself. And I don't see the Obamas that are very powerful, that are very influential, that are a part of pop culture, that are a part of the movies we watch and we all talk about. I don't see them walking away from this, as I see them doubling down and doing extreme things to still have an influence on America.
I remember, I actually just looked this up over the past week. I can't remember the exact figures, but the Clintons coming out of the White House, as Hillary has once bragged before, they were flat broke, according to her. They then get multi-million-dollar book deals, and now they have their foundation. They end up becoming one of the most wealthy families in this country. Just huge sums of money. George Bush even got $5 million or so for his book deal. The Obamas got $60 million for their deal with Netflix. Just that, plus their book deals, everything else on top of it. It's so disgusting how just rife with corruption our political establishment is. Like I think it's a distinct possibility that Obama's serving out his third term in his underwear in his basement in D.C. Like, yeah, it's a possibility.
Oh, I agree with you completely.
Yeah. But it's just amazing how much money you're able to make. Like you give sweetheart deals to Netflix or whoever is the big power broker while you're in office, and then they just write you a 9-figure check or something like that when you get out of power, 8 figures.
He's there with in his underwear with a pipe filled with some rocks in there that we can't mention here, with some lover boy in the corner there, like, I'm gonna mess it up.
It's amazing.
Watch this movie we're gonna make that's gonna tell them exactly what we're gonna do to them. These dumbasses are gonna see it coming.
Yeah,
I could see that. I could legitimately see that with how much people loved him and allowed him to get away with so much horrible policies that he personally committed. The guy started wars. The guy extrajudiciously assassinated American citizens, teenagers, kids. And then everyone's like, but he's Obama. He's the first white, Asian, black president. So he's cool. And I'm like, what? That right there was a moment in American history that really showed us how awful things could get, with how Orwellian things could get with just the levels of manipulation. Sorry, you had something to say.
No, I mean, I just agree with you. I think, anybody with half a brain cell knows that Biden is nothing more than a puppet, and it's the Obama administration doing out its third term, as you said.
Yep.
Yeah, right, doing out its third term. So anybody with a brain cell knows that. Like you said, the policies are exactly the same. War. Murder, killing people. It's obviously not what we had under Trump. We have the exact same thing under Biden that we had with Obama. So he's in his basement in his underwear and with you, running, pulling the strings.
It really does seem so. And I just want the duopoly to stop. Just please stop ruining everything. I'm really concerned. Like 2024, I have never been as concerned about a year. And I just went through 2020, which was catastrophic. And I am way more concerned about this year. I do not see a pathway, as Phil Labonte says all the time. I don't see an off-ramp. I don't either, Phil. Come late November, when the ballots are tallied and whatever, it's like, how do we possibly come together and not have some sort of crazy moment that I won't even go into detail because we're not on Rumble.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask about elections and how you see that going, but we can save that for Rumble.
Yeah, we're like a couple minutes away.
We're a couple of minutes away from total freedom and total ability to just have absolute free speech, as our button pusher is a little distracted there, Stephanie. We got you. Your camera, I got you. There's a lot of different things that we definitely want to talk about. I've stopped myself from going off on rants that I'm just going to explode on Rumble in the most craziest way possible. So to see that, go to rumble.com. You don't even have to find our channel. We're on the front page. We're, I think, number 2 next to Don Jr., who's going live right now. So just go to rumble.com, where we, of course, will be continuing the conversation there in a more kind of unfiltered, natural way, where there's a lot of really interesting things to talk about, especially when it comes to aliens, the Nephilim, Clint's people, and a lot of very interesting theories out there, as of course there's a lot to say about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies. There's a lot to say about the German protests that are happening there. We have a lot of people here on YouTube. What are you doing? You have to vote with your clicks. You have to vote with your attention. And one of the best ways to do that is by signing up and showing support for independent alternative platforms like Rumble. Again, lots of really incredible people here on YouTube. Thank you for all the super chats. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for even the people who disagreed with us. We love that. We love conversation. We love critical thinking. We love being able to have a conversation here that yes, is a little watered down, and we admit that. We have a super chat here from Joel Exlin saying, have you listened to a stream by Salty Cracker? He goes hard and is still on YouTube. We cannot bow down to YouTube forever. Still love the show, y'all. See you on Rumble. Joel, we explained our theory of what we're doing here. And again, we got nearly 1 million subscribers here on YouTube. This is something that I've been working on for a very long time. And this is where we reach the Kyles and Karens. This is where the normies are. This is where we reach people that we wouldn't normally reach. Rumble, there's a lot of people who think the way we do, and then we take them deep down the rabbit hole and then really blow their minds. But here, even if we do have to be careful with what we say, I see that as even a little bit advantageous, because if I'm able to meet someone in the middle road, if I'm able to guide someone in and even water down a message just a little bit, which we are admittedly, if I'm able to get them to see the light more through that kind of approach, I'm going to do it. And I think it's a smart approach. It's an approach that Tim Pool has been utilizing for a very long time. He has been very successful doing so. And he has his own member show. We have our own member show as well. But once we go on Rumble, the show's totally different. You got to check it out. Rumble.com. Go to it right now if you are on YouTube, as I will splurge my whole stream of consciousness against the blank, 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 ruling blank, 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 people who do blank, blank, blank upside their blank, blank, blanks.
We are going to unleash a cataclysmic splurge on Rumble.
Yes.
Gosh, I'm excited. I'm excited for this. I'm ready for this.
Before we go over there, again, rumble.com, we're on the front page. You could see us right there. Leah, before we leave the YouTube audience, where can people find you and support your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on Twitter. I'm also on YouTube. It's just my name, at Leah Heilpern. I have a podcast where I take people down the rabbit hole as well, particularly the Bitcoin and crypto rabbit hole. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok. So yeah, come check me out across all socials.
At Liberty Lock Pod on X. Please do subscribe. If you want to support my work, you could actually support it there. Also, libertylockdown.locals.com. Liberty Lockdown got a new show dropping later tonight, and also Dave Smith coming on shortly, so that'll be a great episode. So make sure you subscribe. And I don't know, I also do it on Rumble too sometimes whenever the episode's too hot. So yeah, look, if you've never actually transitioned over from YouTube to Rumble with us, do it tonight. Okay, trust me, we're going to talk about aliens. It's going to be awesome.
That's one of the good transitions that you could have here. Steph, you talk way too much.
Steph We Are Change on Instagram, Steph WRC on X.
Stop talking so much, Steph. Jeez.
Can't get a word in edgewise.
Yeah, I mean, it's just utterly ridiculous here. As of course,